Hey guys, how's it going? So this video goes out to my good friend and longtime channel supporter, Pillbox Bunker. And he recently got a new AK. It's one of the new Zastavas. And he just had some quick questions on how to break it down, how to field strip it, disassemble. And this video is to help him and hopefully all of the rest of you as well. Now for YouTube's purposes, both of the firearms I'm going to show here. I'm going to show you guys two different AKs. Two different types, a little bit of a twist on the takedown. Both of them are completely unmodified. The one has a 20 round magazine, and this one's actually a 10 round magazine with an interesting story. And I'll get into this magazine after I'm done doing the field stripping. And also the context of this video is only for educational purposes on how to take this apart for cleaning and routine maintenance. And that's important. So there you go, YouTube, on that. First one I have here is a basic AKM. This is the PSA GF3-R, meaning it's a Romanian built on a new receiver. Again, all done by PSA at the factory. I have more information on this. Check my playlist. I've done a couple actual videos on this specific rifle, but this is the PSA GF3-R with many original Romanian parts, and this is going to represent most of the AKs you're going to find as far as disassembly, reassembly. And if you guys are interested, I can do a part 2 where I actually go through and do the cleaning. This is just for informational purposes on how to take it apart, just to the point of cleaning, again, and routine maintenance. So we're going to start off with any firearm that you're going to clean, and we're going to check to make sure we are empty. We can see there's nothing in the chamber. I'm removing this magazine. This 10 round magazine is empty, and I promise you guys, I'm not joking, this is a 10 round, and it's actually a pretty unique and rare mag. So the firearm is clear, and we're going to take this apart. I'm going to show you guys pretty easy, actually. So usually I start off just by running the bolt. That's going to bring the hammer down, make it a little bit easier. This is your top cover, kind of serves as a general purpose dust cover, piece of stamped sheet metal. In the back, you're going to see what looks like a button. This is actually your guide rod. So I'll usually grab the rifle here with my thumb. This is a lot easier to do off camera. I'm going to try to get the angles the best I can, guys. And I'm just going to push in on this button till it clears the inside of the top cover. And I'm just going to kind of pull it off. Now this is with pushing it in, and I'm also kind of jiggling it side to side. Again, kind of fumbling it because I'm trying to get the camera angle, but it's just a matter of pushing this in enough to clear this little square cut out there. And then if it's tight, kind of just jiggle it a little bit. Lifting up from the back first, it just slides out as one piece. Now, you can see that that button was indeed part of your guide rod recoil assembly. This is under spring pressure, so just kind of point it away from you. It runs in a little groove on what's called the rear trunnion. So I'm just going to grasp this firmly, push forward, and then up, and it's going to come out in one piece out of the bolt carrier. Now I have my bolt carrier, which is also housing my bolt. Now we're going to look here. We can see the upper rails, and when we get to the rear, you can see there's a little bit larger cutout. That is going to allow for the clearance of the BCG to come out. So I'm going to come back to the rear. You're going to kind of have to push down and give it a little bit of extra effort, because even though this hammer is back, and you want the hammer to be back, guys, if you didn't rack it beforehand, you can just take your thumb. I'll show you guys. So just assuming you didn't already rack it. I rack it ahead of time. Your hammer would be up like this. Just grab it with your thumb, push it down until you hear it click. That's going to be the reset. You can engage your safety if you want, just to make sure it doesn't come back up, but watch out. Don't overextend the safety selector above, because your top cover normally acts as a keeper to keep it from hyperextending. If you hyperextend, then it could actually come out, the selector safety there. So just bring it up to about even with the receiver, not anymore, unless you're purposely trying to take this piece out, which we're not for the purposes of cleaning and routine maintenance. So I'm just going to grab onto the top of the carrier here. We're going to overcome a little bit of tension with the bolt. I'm going to get past that. Now it's not going to come out yet. We have to bring it all the way back to this widened portion here. And then it almost just kind of popped out on its own because there was tension from the hammer. Right now we basically have a field stripped AKM. We can see our receiver here. Give you guys a quick look at that. Very wide open platform, lots of tolerances, which lends to this firearm's reliability overall. One more thing here. We can see the bolt. This is the correct orientation of the bolt in the carrier here. To get it out, it kind of runs in a groove that goes down on an angle. You guys can see there. Right now, these are two separate components. I'm just going to bring the bolt back. See how it rotates when it goes back? This is a rotating bolt design. Okay, see how it rotates in and out of battery? We're going to let it rotate back. I'm going to give it another about a quarter turn. That kind of gets the little ear out of the track that's built into the carrier. Now I can grab the bolt head here and pull it out of the carrier. These are areas of which you could clean any type of carbon. You can clean the little area here, the hole where the recoil guide rod assembly goes into. You could clean the channel. I'm not going to get into a full cleaning and lubricant now. This is just showing you how to disassemble to the point of field stripping to do your cleaning. Got plenty of carbon on here. This firearm has been shot, and it's a great shooter, by the way. So there you go. Your bolt is now separate, and that's about it. There's one more thing we can do that doesn't need to be done often, and this is going to be your gas tube, which has your upper handguard around it. You're going to notice a little tab here. This is a lever that you're going to lift up, okay? This one I was able to lift up with my finger. This is a nice build, plenty tight enough, but not too tight. So I'm just going to take this little lever that's right on the side of the rear sight base. I'm going to lift it up towards the sky. And it's hard to pick up on camera, but you're going to see a little pivoting piece in here. Just make sure that pivoting piece is out of the way and about this position here of this little bolster that's on the back of the gas tube. And this will lift up and out. Sometimes a little jiggling is necessary. To tell you the truth, guys, I have AKs. I've shot thousands of rounds. Normally, you don't need to do much with this. You could run like a shotgun cleaning brush through here to get rid of any carbon. But there are grooves in here which serve as tolerances where excess carbon could collect. Again, clean this if you want to. In my opinion, you don't normally need to unless you have like crazy excessive rounds, or maybe you're shooting corrosive ammo. Things like that might make the scenario a little bit different. But you can see our gas bleed off is here on the gas block. So most of the gas is going to be coming out of here and kind of self-cleaning itself, right? Take another look from this angle. One thing I would suggest, don't put any lubricant inside of here. This does not need lubricated. It is not that tight of an interference fit with the gas piston, the AK being a long stroke gas piston. You can see our gas piston. This is riveted or pinned in place to the bolt carrier. This doesn't need lubrication on it. In fact, if you lubricate this gas piston here, or if you lubricate the inside of the gas tube, it's most likely going to foul things up and gunk it up more, because there's now something wet, like the gun lubricant, the oil, that more carbon can actually stick to, and it's probably going to make matters worse. Whereas we can put some lube on the interactive areas of the BCG back here, certainly on the stem of the bolt, even on the little ears where it goes into battery, into the trunnion. That's all fine to lubricate. Don't lube this. Anything on this gas piston or the inside of our gas tube. So hopefully that's a little tip for you. Gas block, you could brush inside of there. There's even a special tool to clean the gas port. Again, not normally necessary. Maybe with corrosive ammo, maybe in certain extreme instances, maybe if you dropped your rifle in the muck or mud, okay. But for normal shooting, I don't really mess around with anything up here, to be honest with you. Same thing, we're just going to have this, the reverse is pretty easy. This round circle is going to meet up with the circle on the gas block. I'm just going to start by, let me try to get this in camera, I'm sorry guys. I'm going to start off by just mating up the two round circles, kind of coming in at an angle. Same thing, just a little jiggling, but the build quality is nice on this rifle, pretty easy. Now sometimes you're going to notice this lever is super hard to get off. Now you could grab it with pliers and maybe mar up your surfaces, whatever. Pliers, by the way, with a little bit of electrical tape around the jaws, Awesome for these types of things. But there's also kind of a tool built in. If you guys look on your bolt carrier, there's a little groove here, okay? That's for it to meet up with the rail on your receiver. See that little groove? That actually will work for this little tab. It's just a little tab here as a tool. So just pretend this was so hard that you couldn't by hand, and trust me, a lot of AK builds out there, you cannot overcome the friction. It's just too tight of a fit. Take that little groove, line it up with the little ear that sticks out on the AK, on the handle here, right? This is so much easier to do when you're not on camera, guys. You're gonna line that up with the little hole here, and now we can use the pressure. I don't know if you guys can see how I'm doing this. See that? I'm now using this as a tool to rotate it forward. So it's literally this simple. It's really hard for me to get this camera angle, guys. The groove there lines up with the little tab, and you're just turning this tool and using it as a fulcrum to get that to come up. So hopefully that's a little tip that helps somebody. Reinstallation of the bolt. It's easy, but it's important that you do it correctly. So we're going to put it in here. We're just going to let it drop down. Okay? Now, if I just sit here and push it back and forth, the bolt's just going to come out. You don't want that. So you want to push it back. We want to rotate it to the point where the lugs start to engage. See? So if you start it off this way, watch what happens. If I start off this way, see that ear's hitting there. That's the wrong way. So I'm going to rotate it the other way, and it falls out. So you just want to take this, put it in here. You can do it upside down, right side up. If I start off on this angle, the ear's going to catch. So just keep rotating it till you have clearance, right? Now you're going to sit here. It won't rotate that way, but it will rotate this way, right? And now it goes into battery. So you can do it upside down. You can do it right side. There's different ways to do this. But you just want to just use your common sense. And if you notice it rotating properly, it's going to rotate to the point here. Then it's going to stop. So now we're in the correct position. Keep this oriented straight up and down. You're going to see the ears to the right and to the left on the bolt. This is a rotating bolt. Yet again, these are what's going to engage on the front trunnion. You can see the bottom portion here where it strips the round out of the magazine. So keep it like this. If this turns at any point while you're moving it around, push it back forward. It has to be forward in battery. That's the key. You're going to go back and find the wide recessed area here where there's little recesses cut out in the receiver. We're going to first put our gas piston in through the rear sight base, start feeding it into the gas block, and I'm going to hover those two little rails on the carrier above that opening. I'm going to push down, overcoming that hammer tension, still pushing down the whole time. Right there in the battery. Recoil guide rod assembly. Put it in loose like this. You're going to go forward in front of the two little grooves that are in the rear trunnion. You're going to kind of see how that mates up right in there. There's just a little recess, kind of a little tongue and groove application. Now we're going to put on the dust cover. And this can be challenging, and no two AKs are exactly alike when it comes to this. So there's a couple techniques. First of all, you're going to notice a little slot in the rear sight base. Right here. There's a little slot that's going to coincide with the sheet metal of this stamped cover. You're going to start off by putting that in there. While keeping forward pressure, you're also going to kind of push down, and you're going to notice sometimes it clicks in place just like that. I'm doing two things at once here. Let me show you this again, because there's a couple different tricks for this, and my hands are all covered in grease right now. There's a couple tricks for this. See that? I told you guys I had been shooting this rifle. You want to keep the forward pressure. This has to be lined up, and this is self-explanatory if you have one in front of you. This front portion here, there's a little spot machined out that has to be kept forward the whole entire time. If it falls off of that little groove, it's not going to go on properly. It has to be kept forward. You're pushing down and then almost kind of like moving it side to side a little bit. I kind of did that with it, okay? Here's another method some people use. Again, keeping it pushed forward here. They'll kind of push down, give it a smack, and then you can see that the button, which is the back of the recoil guide rod, went right back in battery. We're just going to test function real quick. Trigger, reset, selector is on safe. It will not fire, and we are reassembled and ready to go. I'm going to get to this magazine in just a minute. I didn't forget about you guys. I'm just going to show you one more model that has a little bit of a twist here, okay? And this is a Yugo variant, if you will, being the Zastava M70. Now, this is chambered in 308 or 7.62 NATO. This is a very, very heavy duty, heavyweight AK variant, bulged front trunnion, 20 round magazine. Same thing. Let's check this to make sure it's clear. The magazine is empty. The chamber's clear, and this firearm is empty. Dry firing it in a safe direction. Did you guys hear the speed of that hammer? Clunk. Yeah, that was pretty crazy. Now, same thing. I'm going to rack it back just to get that hammer down. Now, this is basically going to be the same as the other one, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. But there's one additional variant. You'll see this especially on a lot of the Yugos. Maybe some RPKs as well. This not only has the back of the guide rod retaining the dust cover, but since Yugoslavia had a manual of arms where most riflemen were also a grenadier, and they would put launchers on these, not included in this video, by the way, they would put an extra keeper, and this is a little side button that has spring tension on it that also acts as a keeper. So you're going to need to do two things at once. You're going to need to A, push in on the side button, keep it fully depressed, while pressing in on this rear of the guide rod. And I usually do it from the opposite side because I'm right-handed, but while pushing in on this little button, let me zoom in so you guys can see that. Right here. That has to be pressed in. So I'm going to switch this around, but I'm going to be pushing on this the whole time. Okay? So while pushing in on this, this is like so much harder to do on camera, guys, than off camera, trust me. So I'm pushing in on that little left button. I'm also pressing in on this while lifting the top cover off. This being a much thicker stamped top cover than the previous AKM. Now, our guide rod recoil assembly is still captured by this little button here. So I'm going to press in on this button, come forward, and then up and out. And you can see when you're looking at it, there's just a little rod in here that moves back and forth, and that helps retain. Let me do this. So I'm going to move the recoil guide rod assembly. I'm not going to get as in depth because I don't want this video to go forever. Same principle, guys. Rotating bolt design. Carrier, gas piston here. Bolt, same thing. Rotating it in and out of battery to take it in and out like I explained earlier, right? Rotating it back up in battery. You know you're in battery when it rotates and won't go forward anymore. Same thing, lever on the front sight base, or rear sight base, I'm sorry, that will then uncapture this front handguard and gas tube. Same thing with the disassembly, because I want to show you guys this cool magazine real quick. Same thing, you're going to find the widened area where basically the upper rail is cut out. That allows you clearance for this portion of the carrier. We're pushing down, forward, into battery. Now this actually, it makes it a little harder to take it down, but by having this little extra reinforcement for the top cover, we're actually going to use that to our advantage. So check this out. I'm not going to push this button in yet because that would let this go the final, I don't know, 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch of travel here. I'm going to keep it just staged in this position. It's just rusting up against there. We are still retained. I mean, keep it away from your face, but we're just sitting there in that little groove. Now check this out. This is kind of a little trick you can use. Take your top cover, line it with the rear sight base, and I'm actually holding it right over the hole, okay? See that? And it's still retained by this keeper. Now I'm just going to press this little button on the side, and it popped right through for me. So, depends how you look at it. This style, with the extra top cover retainer there makes it a little harder to take down, but you saw how reinstalling that top cover made it a breeze. So let me know in the comments what you think, but I don't know, it might be a win in the long run as far as the reassembly being that much easier. This might be preferred. You might think it's a pain in the butt. I don't know. It is what it is. But either way, taking apart the AK for cleaning and routine maintenance is rather easy. Basic function. Oh yeah. Nice trigger on this. Resets there. Selector. Save. See what I'm talking about, guys, earlier? Watch this. When I push the selector up, it's coming in contact with this top cover. If the top cover is not there, that's why I was saying, if you want to put your selector on when you're disassembling it for your cleaning or routine maintenance, be careful you don't come up any higher than this, because this won't be there to stop you. And if you rotate it all the way straight up, it's prone to just come right out, and which is fine, and you may need to do that for certain things, but for general cleaning and maintenance, it's just an extra step. You probably don't want to have to put your selector back in when you're done. You know what I'm saying? Scope rail on this as well. 308-762 NATO. AKM variant. Very, very heavy. Rifle overall. And it's nice. It's a nice shooter. I have shot this firearm and I really enjoy it. Now, about this cool magazine. And I wasn't joking, guys. Like, look, the YouTube terms and conditions, less than 30 round mags. And I'm not playing fast and loose with the rules. This is literally a 10 round magazine with an interesting story. So this started off its life as a Russian AKM magazine. It's hard for the camera to pick up, but there's Russian proof marks all along the spine of this, okay? Which shows you a story of a time not so long ago where there was friendly commerce, obviously, between Ukraine and Russia. You can see the Russian proof marks also maybe a little bit here. They're hard to pick up because they're just stamped in. Looks like we can see a little bit of a Tula star right there, about center of the frame right now. That was then sold or otherwise given to Ukraine. And we can see a Ukraine crest here. Now, this is one of their civilian magazines because they have 10 round magazine limits, and I didn't alter this. This is how it came to me, okay? I'm not showing you guys anything that I've modified whatsoever. All of this stuff in this video is how it came from the factory. These were imported into the US not too long ago. And this is a civilian. It looks like a 30 round mag, but it has a limiter that they put in, that Ukraine put in to limit it, where this much of the mag is basically useless. There's a limiter that sticks up here and it prevents the follower from coming down, making this indeed a 10 round mag because that's what civilians were allowed to have. Now recently I think they've changed and removed a lot of the restrictions of firearms for civilians, but we'll see how long that lasts, right? Another thing they did to be sure you're using civilian mag is if you look at these little weldments, these feed lip areas, the reinforcements on top. Normally both sides look exactly like this. Let's come around here and you can see in the Ukraine that they ground that little area off. Well, that's because if you had a civilian AK variant, civilian legal, you had to have a 10 round mag, okay, check. But to make sure you couldn't put a 30 round mag in it, they would put a little device in the mag well, just a little standoff, a little piece of metal. And if you didn't have this cutout to clear past it, the mag wouldn't insert. So just imagine just a little tab that they would affix inside the mag well. With this piece missing here, being ground off, it would clear that little limiter tab to basically try to make it difficult. I would say prevent, but you can't really prevent anyone from doing anything, right? To make it more difficult for them just to grab a regular military issue. In their country, it'd be military issue. In the United States, 30 rounds is standard capacity. We just can't show them on YouTube. But that's a whole nother story. But this would ensure that they were only able to put these 10 round magazines in there because it would require the clearance that was cut on the feed lip portion for it to insert in there. So this is a Russian, as in literally made in Russia, refurbished and repurposed for the civilian market in Ukraine with their proof mark laser etched right there with that little cutout done. And there's a limiter that's within the body of this magazine, limiting it to 10 rounds, which makes this kind of a unique piece of history. So this is a 10 round civilian Ukraine mag that was made in Russia. I see this video has already gone over 20 minutes, but hopefully this was informative for people. And if you already know how to field strip and all that for cleaning your AK, hopefully you found a little bit of the history to be at least somewhat entertaining. And this is definitely a unique mag. I really like my PSA GF3-R, the Romanian AKM. Check my channel, I've done a couple videos on that. And then I also really like the Zastava M77. I mean, who doesn't like a 308 AK, right? Alright guys, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.